Hey guys, may as well get this done now. Sorry, this has taken way too long. A mixture of things have prevented me from making this video, from illness to laziness to lots of work at university, not actually listening to the album all that much, and a bunch of other things that I won't go into. But yes, finally, EXO Don't Mess Up My Tempo review. It's actually been such a long time since I've done an album review. I don't remember the last time I did one, which is a shame because I do like making this sort of content. It's the sort of content I prefer to make as opposed to reactions, which whilst are very easy, are also not the most fulfilling kind of content. That's part of the reason I love making reviews. So yeah, let's get into this. Let's just start off with the title track, Tempo, the first track on the album. The pop rock track. It's quite a different sound for EXO to be going for. There is some dance influence as well on this, which they didn't mention at all in their description of the song. It has a lot of character. There's some really creative points. The voice alteration throughout works. I also feel Sehun and Chenyol's parts in this song don't feel forced at all, like sometimes their parts do in EXO title tracks. In general, it's a very fluid and well-structured song, and the ad-libs are really well put together. And these ad-libs, really, they are fun. They're done really well because usually EXO instrumentals for a title track are really bombastic. This is quite simple. It's just got this simple drum and bass synth layering, and then you have these ad-libs laid over the top, and it sounds really good. The slowdown is really smooth, and the vocals throughout are very good. Shout out to Kyung-soo especially. I thought he did a great job on this track. And then of course the acapella part, which was just, it was a great surprise, and it works incredibly well. Very brave decision. I think this is probably their most creative song on the album, and the bravest it gets on this album, which I think I could say is a little bit disappointing because I want them to be as brave as they were on this song throughout the whole album. But, you know, this is definitely a high point. So Tempo was a really good track, but unfortunately we dropped down a level with Sign. This is a really underwhelming track for me. Going from Tempo to this is a mostly electronic based instrumental, but not in like a nice way. It's quite blurry and unambitious. It's generally quite a boring track. However, the chorus is quite powerful and it sounds great, but it's just quite formulaic and simple. You know, even some lovely vocals and harmonies can't really save it all that much because it's just pretty dour track. Chenyol does have this little snippet of a you know, a couple of bars which do spice it up, but he needs longer if you're gonna make an impact on a song, because it just feels like it was ham-fisted in there. Hey, let's get some rap in there. It felt very ham-fisted and lazy. Next we move on to Ooh La La, a slightly Latin pop inspired track. It's got a fairly fresh bassy instrumental, which is quite nice. There's some fun delivery quirks that the members go for, but a fairly simple chorus, which, you know, doesn't necessarily take away from the track, but some pretty bland, simple lyrics do. And, you know, it just doesn't add up to much with the bland vocals as well. However, shout out to the producers, because I do think the instrumental on this is very good. I like it a lot. Now obviously it is, I mean, it's creative to go for a slightly Latin pop sound, but it's such an unambitious take on Latin pop that it just felt a little bit lackluster. And then boom, we get this intro that sounds like Power. This is Gravity. Wow, this song, this is a much better track than Power. Of course, the title track from The Power of Music. Jesus Christ, I couldn't remember the title of the repackaged album. It's also produced by LDN Noise, frequent EXO and SM collaborator. This is a fairly light electro pop track. The production is live wired, the vocals are superb, really nice blend of ranges. Whilst it's pretty simple at its heart, the textures and layering of this track just make Sign and Ooh La La just look pathetic and seem really lazy, because this song is so well constructed. The lyrics are very interesting, very complex, lots of fun, and, you know, for a song like this, which really doesn't need that sort of lyricism, was just very nice and well appreciated, because all songs should have this sort of depth to them. I believe Chenyol had a hand in writing them. I don't know whether he wrote the whole track or if he was just like a helper or a co-writer, but I was really impressed with it. And finally, the switchovers between the members and the different parts of the song were really smooth, so well done. This was such a superb track. Following on from that, we get like a little mood switch to With You, which is a pretty plain love song, which I believe was also written by Chen. Very simple instrumental, which is a nice move after the intensity of Gravity, and it's a welcome break actually. A superb job is done by the vocal line, showing off their range. I also really like the rap breakdown in this track. It works well, and it's a completely different flow that we've seen from Sehun and Chen. There's also some really smart usage of silence in this track. It's something that oftentimes can be a little bit ignored, but I think on this track you can't really ignore it. It's really nicely done. And it's also nicely timed, because a song like this is quite slow and can be boring to some, and it could easily have dragged, but they made it nice and short. It was a good length. Now we get into sort of the middle of the album, where sometimes these tracks can be quite fillery. And 24/7, I wouldn't really call it a filler track. I think it's actually one of the best songs on the album. We've got this dreamy pop track with some really lovely breathy vocals and a very sparkly, subtle instrumental. It can be a little bit dull at times, but Chanyeol and Sehun do a great job with their parts, and in general, it's such a brilliant little piece there. It's situated right in the middle of the album, and it's very nice. Then suddenly we get Bad Dream, which is a very moody R&B pop track. There's some lovely vocal combinations and a really great pre-chorus, but it is let down by these washed out chorus vocals and a pretty boring instrumental. There's this percussion which it's just so faded, I can barely hear it, and I'm just like, bring it a little bit more forward, then you get a more textured instrumental, but it just feels so backwards, and the washed out vocals, the blary synths, and it's just so flat during the chorus. I think perhaps this song was maybe a step too far. Like, it's not super duper creative, but it's quite a complex track, and it just sounds like a mess, unfortunately. It had a lot of potential, but it just does sound a bit messy. Damage, man. I'm a sucker for this track, I really am. It's not like their most creative or crazy track. I'm just a sucker for this sound. The chorus is unbelievably catchy. The horn synthesizers focus the instrumental in a really nicely balanced way. And Sehun gave me life on this track. His delivery has improved so much over the years, and he sounded so good. And there's some real vocal range showed over this track, and I think that no time is better showing this than at this incredible instrumental switch up point at about 2.5 minutes into the track. Some really fantastic vocals, lovely amounts of range shown. And yeah, this is one of my favourite tracks on the album. And then we calm down. It's Smile on My Face. This is a very, very welcome calm down. It's a gorgeous ballad piece. Ballad piece? Not going to re-record that. It's a very slow track, and you know, it definitely reminds me of Walk on Memories, but it's a very distinct song compared to that. I do like Walk on Memories, but I think this one just edges it for me. I personally love the chorus the most because it's just so powerfully emotional, and it does it just enough to invest me, but not to sound melodramatic. It also doesn't drag too much. Maybe it could end a little bit sooner, but I think overall it's a nicely structured song with some fantastic vocals. Although it did at times feel a little bit formulaic, I would say, just because it's positioned very similarly to Walk on Memories in the War album. It's like second to last, right before a track which is a lot of fun, and yeah, I don't know, maybe it felt a little bit formulaic, but I did enjoy it. And finally we have Oasis. I would say this is a highlight track. This is the perfect example of EXO taking risks and playing around with their music. The use of silence, once again, I cannot emphasize this enough. It truly sets the tone of this song. The creativity of the track, the weird deliveries, it's so playful, and it's utilized so incredibly well in this track. It's definitely a favorite of mine next to Damage and Tempo. A true example of what EXO's members can do on a track, vocally and creatively. It's a lot of fun. I really do like this track. So overall, I do like the album. I think there's a lot of high points. I would say there's a few too many filler tracks, especially towards the beginning. Sign, Ooh La La are pretty dull tracks overall. Bad Dream just feels a little bit unfinished and messy. With You is just it's a bit dull. I'm going to be honest, it's just a bit dull, not much to it. But yeah, I mean, it's a decent album overall. For me, it doesn't match up with The War. The War for me is just an exceptional album. This does sort of feel like a really different version of The War, but it's like taken from the bare bones copy of The War, but then like changed sound and stuff. So there are similarities, but it's it's not exactly the same, but I do feel a little bit disappointed in some ways with this album. I'm looking forward to the repackaged album. Hopefully they can change the tone of the album. At times I felt this was a little bit too playful. I want EXO to sometimes try some darker themes. Even the love songs feel a little bit melancholy, but not dark, you know, like they feel sad, and yeah, it just doesn't quite hit the right notes for me overall. But yeah, I mean, the album, it's good. There are some high points and there are some low points. For me, this is a solid 6 out of 10, maybe edging a 7 out of 10 album. So yeah, lots of enjoyable points. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite captured me like some of the other EXO albums. I haven't been listening to it all that much, unfortunately. I think that is partly due to my circumstances, but also just I haven't quite connected with it as well as I had hoped. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. This is going to be Ginno signing out. See you guys soon.